What's up, metalheads? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes and Spotify. Also Instagram at talklouder_podcast. And our website, talklouderpodcast.com. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host Jason McMaster. And before we announce today's guest, Jason, you got something you want to share with us?
How are you doing, Dave? How's it going?
I'm doing well. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm doing great. Yeah.
I have a Talk Louder boast and brag.
Oh.
Show and tell, if you will.
Yeah.
I recently, anyone who's anyone, went and saw the Judas Priest was in town fairly recently. A friend of mine, Bob Sutcliffe, came down, and we sat together at the show and sang Painkiller together. You know, it was awesome.
Yeah.
He took some photos, and unbeknownst to me, I didn't know it was going to happen. I walked to the mailbox today. Well, a box ended up on the porch. He came down from Kansas City, so.
Yeah, I remember he told me.
Dude, these were taken with his phone, and this is like, you probably can't see them very well, especially if you're listening. But he took these with his phone.
Wow.
And it's just, it kind of captured the vibe of the whole thing.
Yes, I love the lights.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And there's some close-ups too. This is for people in listen land and not YouTube land. It's the bow at the very end of the show.
With Glenn.
It might even be Glenn's not in the bow, in the holding hands bow, all five guys up front. Glenn is not in the photo.
But he was at the show.
He was at the show. Maybe this was the first encore before Glenn came out.
Oh, that must be it, because I've seen photos with Glenn doing the bow at the end of the night.
They came out and did it again.
Yeah.
And here's the second one, and I can't really tell what's going on, but it's very interesting. It's Richie and Rob, of course. They're the new version of the dynamic duo.
Wow.
And Richie's like clapping his hands in the air, or he's like about to bow down to the metal god or something.
Yeah.
But I just can't believe he took these with his phone. I mean, obviously our seats were fairly decent for him to be able to zoom in and get all those lines.
The color, and I love the way all the spotlights are cutting through the darkness, and yeah.
I think this is towards the very end though, because the banner is down and it says the priest will be back.
That was right at the end. Yeah,
that's at the end. So that's a good here. And here's the grand finale for me, which is my favorite. Of course, it's Rob solo with his Santa Claus beard.
Yeah.
Because, everybody knows I love Rob, and I can call it the Santa Claus beard if I want.
Yeah.
And that's just him sort of like solemnly, making eyes with the audience.
Yeah. That's great. Again, the lights.
Thank you, Bob Sutcliffe.
Yeah. Bob sent me, I got to give a shout to Bob. He sent me a little package in the mail, and it was a bunch of Iron Maiden ballpoint pens that have the Maiden logo.
Did
you get some of those?
Yeah. What a sweetheart.
Yeah, I mean, for a guy that lives out of state to put all that stuff in the mail and send it to us, that's very cool.
Is it kind of like, man, I have all this badass shit. I don't have anywhere to put it, so I'm just sending it to Jason and Dave, because obviously they have room. Wait a minute.
Right. Yeah.
Does he think that we have room?
I think what we should start doing? Me and you should start sending stuff back to Bob.
I have his address. Let's fucking do it.
I got to get some more wall space. Maybe I can unload some of this
silliest heavy metal care packages that we can think of to Bob. Here, it's time for you to store this shit for me.
Yeah.
Oh, he would love it. He would love it.
Yeah, I'm sure he would. He's one of us for sure.
Our guest today is an old friend of mine, but I don't want that to cloud any accolades, because the guy is he's one of the most badass drummers in the world. He's from Texas. He's from San Antonio, and some people don't even realize that unless they read a bio or just get to know him a little bit in his background. But from San Antonio, it turns out that he was sort of a service brat like you.
Yeah.
I learned that about today.
He was born in Germany.
Tell him who it is, Dave.
His name, he's got the coolest name, dude.
Yes, he does.
His name is Dave.
Yeah.
His name is Dave McClain, drummer extraordinaire. You know him best as the drummer of 23 Years with Machine Head. Jason and I know him from back in his days in S.A. Slayer from San Antonio. He's currently in Sacred Reich for the second time. And he was once in a band with Neil Turbin, the original singer for Anthrax. And he's done a few other things in between. Those are the things you would know him most from. And we've been trying to get him on the show a few times. And I actually saw him when he was in town, and so did you. I think we missed each other, but we both ran into Dave McClain when Sacred Reich was out with Sepultura recently. Mm-hmm. He is home from tour in his drum studio, joining us today to kind of catch up and share his history and past, present, future, all that good stuff. And
Let me give the warning. This is a 2-hour episode.
Yeah.
So drink some coffee.
Yeah.
Or if you commute, you can listen. You don't have to listen to it all in one swipe,
That's what the pause button is for.
Yeah, you can pause and go to work and then listen to the rest of it on your commute home. And then if that doesn't take up 2 hours, you can go to sleep, wake up in the morning, and listen to the rest of it at that moment. Because we didn't want to cut him off. We wanted to hang out with him. The dude is completely lovable, and everyone who has worked with him or met him knows that he is the real deal. He's the nicest guy. He tells the truth, and he's just the sweetest guy ever. And before I just start crying because I love Dave McClain so much, everyone just know that we are excited to have Mr. David McClain on the Talk Louder podcast today. Please enjoy. McClain was gonna tell us about his studio because I was watching that, like the day-to-day on the construction of that drum studio that he sits in now. So I was familiar with it via, Twitter or just socials. Yeah. And Dave, you had a guy build it, and it's a riser. You're in your garage, right?
Yeah.
You had somebody build a riser first. What's under the floor? Tell us about how that construction of that drum studio.
Right. So I can see both of you guys now, by the way. I just figured it out.
Nice.
So I, that's always been one of my big dream things, is to have a drum studio at my house, and up until 6 years ago, I didn't even have a house. So we've got this house up in Wisconsin in Oshkosh. And so I had hired this guy who he's a great builder, and he hadn't really ever done any, like a soundproof room or anything. And but he had looked it up. He had these plans for it and everything. So what he did was, so it's a room within the garage, right?
Yeah.
And what he did was he lifted it off the ground so the sound would kind of stop there and not be right on the ground. And then he built the room within the room. So the whole thing is about 6 inches away from the actual garage wall. And it's 2 walls on each side. So the drum room is double drywall, insulation, double drywall on the inside. And the same for the ceiling, the floor, everything. It's so crazy. And it's only about, you could see it's only about 8 by 8 in here, maybe 9 by 9, maybe.
Yeah, it looked like, you can tell how close your cymbals are to the foam, to the wall.
Right.
how it's a bit small. But the fact that, and I wanted to comment just so nerds may unite, that they say that dead space, dead air is the best volume control. Like you have a wall, and then you have a wall. That space in between where there's absolutely nothing is what's going to stop the sound before it hits the outside. Right.
That's the best soundproofing. You know, it's kind of funny because when we were kids playing in garage, we all we wanted to do was like collect egg crates. You know what I mean? Because we thought that was going to stop the sound, but it seemed like it made the police come over faster. You know?
They just follow the rotten egg smell.
So if you're banging away in that studio, Dave, and someone's in the house, can they hear you just a little bit or not at all?
Yeah. So you can hear, so my wife works from home. So she's in the room closest to the garage, which is garage is probably about 15 feet away from the house. And, so it almost sounds like you can more hear just like a little bit of low end from the bass drum. So it almost sounds like a car when it drives by when they're playing, you know, like music, and you can hear it just like poof, poof. It's not quite that annoying, but just a little bit of the
subtones. Yeah.
So whose idea was the drum studio, yours or hers?
Right. I know where that question. I know the seed of the.
It's a fair question, right?
Totally, dude.
It is a fair question, but it's no. I think she'd be happy. She would be fine. Well, I don't know about fine, but she would probably, you know, she'd be totally cool with whatever I had to do to play drums, you know. Yeah. But it's like I said, it's always been, you know, Jason, like going way back to the Ricky Warheit's house. You know, back in the S.A. Slayer days, it's like I used to sit there and imagine like having a drum room. But back then, my ultimate drum room was just a wall of PA facing me with my drums mic'd up. And, you know, it's like fast forward 40 years and we've all got hearing loss from playing live music, you know, so that's these things.
Yeah.
These are the...
Well, so, you know, people don't realize, I mean, you know, people who don't play music, they just play the stereo really fucking loud. God bless them, because especially if they're listening to songs we wrote, right?
Right.
So that's the beauty of this whole thing. But here you go. So they're going deaf from listening and we're going deaf from creating until we...
Circle of life.
Right. Until we get smart enough to realize it's like, oh shit, I'm hindering my career by, you know, having a wall of PA just blow my brains out. Or even just being a drummer. I mean, people who don't play drums as a job, they don't realize how loud snare, crash, they don't know how loud that is. It's right under your face. And you're doing
right there.
It every day. So imagine what that's doing to your ears for years and years and years, decades.
Yeah. And you're having to play, drummers having to play louder and louder to, you know, because
I was going to say,
you know, Marshalls and stuff.
That's before you mic it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. My kid, he's 14 years old. You met him at the Sepultura show in Austin. He plays drums and he's got a monster kit upstairs and it's not mic'd and he certainly doesn't have a drum studio like you have. So I keep telling my wife we're either the coolest parents on the planet or we're completely out of our minds because it creates a hell of a racket when he plays, you know. But of course we want to support him and he's really good at it. So we try to cope the best we can, whether that means going downstairs and locking myself away in a room. And thankfully the neighbors are cool with it, but I can certainly vouch for the fact that even an unmiked drum kit in your house will make one hell of a racket. Yeah.
So my next question is: Do you cut tracks, at least demos? Do you have a recording machine in there that your microphones are hitting? Are they triggers or mics?
No, I've got everything mic'd up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it's a small, like, it's a small room. So I've got one overhead, and I've only got 8 channel. I've got like like a Behringer interface. And so yeah, I've got everything mic'd, one overhead, which is perfect. And it goes into my laptop over here.
Yeah.
You can kind of see over there.
Yeah, of course.
And so yeah,
That's a
I mean,
nice
me
room.
and you,
That's a nice room.
it's perfect. It's it's not the biggest room, and but it's, man, I'll tell you what, like, I come out here, like, I'm literally out here for at least 4 hours a day,
Oh yeah.
just playing. And I've turned into record things. I mean, me and you have recorded, done tons of covers over the years, and like, so, and being here, and Sacred Reich guys are in Phoenix, when it comes time to do, like, Phil will send me, demo songs and everything, and I'll just, they'll send them with like an easy drummer thing. I tell them, just put a basic idea, no fills, no nothing, just a basic drum machine idea. And then I put them in here, and mess around with them. And it's so great, man. It's just like,
I have a question about that creating process. Do you, because it just depends. Sometimes if you put like a loop, like a kick snare, sometimes that like blows it for the drummer's creative palette, because then they get married to this, oh man, they want me to play straight right here, and it turns it into stock.
Yeah.
And do they send you a track that you can mute that track so you can put your vibe, so you can play the riff, right? Because they're probably riffing and they got a tick tock, and you want to play the riff with them. And if there's a kick snare, you're like, that's messing up what I want to do, because you want to like accent a vocal or a guitar, a push or a pull or whatever. And do they send you a separate track with that fake drum?
Yeah, they do. They send me. So I'll just have the idea. I'll listen to that. And once I start, I'll put it in without the drum track, and I just go. And I never really, as far as like, getting married to a certain part or whatever, like, once I start going, because actually that will help me. I kind of do the opposite of get married to a part, because if I hear a certain thing, it'll make me go outside of that, and try different things. Mm-hmm. And I can just try it. It's so cool, man. And then once we get into the recording studio, then you really start trying things, and real pre-production. And I think that's one of the things, definitely over the years. And it takes, I think some people can do that, and some people never do, is not to be married to a part. Because once you get in the studio, somebody else has an idea, the producer could have an idea, and it's all part of the creative thing to me. Sure. And if somebody else has an idea, like, let's do it. If it's going to make them happy with that part, then by all means,
what I've done before is write a batch of songs, not a whole record, but 5 songs or whatever, before we record them for real. We demo them out and rehearse them up as a band, but then start playing them live before you go in the studio. You play them fucking things live, and then you go, man, we recorded that too slow. Man, we recorded that too fast. I want to change this part, because you've tried them on. It's like getting to walk around in a new pair of shoes before you pay for them.
Totally.
And so it was Broken Teeth, actually. Wrote 5 songs, started playing them live immediately, and found some of them were sour apples, and some of them we morphed into these badass tunes.
That's cool.
Before we recorded the song. Have you ever done that before with any of your bands?
I don't think so. I think probably like the only band we really ever did that in was like S.A. Slayer, because we just played gigs before we got into the thing. But other than that, we've never really.
It's been a process.
Never really been. Yeah, but that's cool though, because even because even after you do record the song and you play those live, like they always, that was one thing with, in Machine Head, we started running everything, the whole show, we just ran on a click, right? Mm-hmm. But they were clicks that I made. Get lit, click.
Yeah.
Click.
Yeah.
But they were clicks that I made kind of based on live recordings that we, because we did it way after the fact, like started using click tracks live. So I would go in and sometimes I would just do, they were the craziest click tracks because you would slow things down. Sometimes I'd slow things down in the middle of a verse, getting ready for a chorus slowdown. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so that's cool. Like going back on things, and because once you start playing the song live, it just takes on this whole other, dynamics and everything. So
you were in that, you were basically programming the click to have the emotional value the song needed from you playing it live so many times already.
Right.
You were going, hey, stop, hold on a second. So this part feels like it needs to like swell a little bit. And this thing needs to like, so by the time it gets to the next section, it's going to blow up, da-da-da-da-da. So you're programming, you've got a robot in your head telling you where to like come in, like, to like do this wave thing, this pull down, and then this like blast at the end of it. Yeah.
Totally.
That's just smart. That's called production.
And yeah, and the songs that because they were already doing that, we just did those naturally live, and then to get that on a click track was like really tricky because because playing in Sacred Reich, we did one of the records we did independent. We did it with Dave Jordan, and he wanted everything done to a click, and so we were like, oh man, some of these parts and he wanted it was like a click the whole one tempo the whole way, right? And it was just like, man, this is weird. We want to pull back on these, and he was like, nobody will ever even notice that. But I still notice it to this day when I listen back to the song. I'm like, But
well, someone's going to say you're not going to notice that, but they're not playing the song.
Right.
Yeah. I think he just wanted us out of the studio because he had just done the Alice in Chains album Dirt. And I think,
right. Wow. Yeah.
I think he was just like, get these guys. We were just part of like the, conveyor belt coming in. Laverne and Shirley putting the caps on the bottle. Like, there they go.
Well, he was busy. He was busy for a minute, wasn't he, Dave?
Oh,
Jordan?
Yeah. Quick sidebar, Dave. How long have you been in Wisconsin? I don't think I knew that.
Been here almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in October.
Okay. And what took you out to Wisconsin?
I've got step family up here.
Okay.
And so about 6 years ago, we're just living in California or whatever. You're always kind of looking at other places. I would always look at houses, and like one dream was like to live in Nashville or to live, whatever. And
you asked me about Austin a couple of times.
Yeah, Austin's like getting so crazy and so expensive now.
Yeah, you don't want to come here, man.
No, I'm trying to get out of here.
Well, that's funny because now people are looking. I've heard this from a few people where they're kind of migrating towards the San Antonio area because I guess San Antonio is becoming cool. And I mean,
it's always been cool. It's always been kind of cool, but it's like anybody's hometown. It's a great place to leave. Oh man, I grew up here. It's you get tired of it, but
so
that's more what I meant by that. Because I do love San Antonio. But that's like up here. This is a place that you get the hell out of,
Right.
And so moving up here was, at this, but you're always looking at houses and stuff, and you're seeing what, we just happened to run across this one, and my stepmom is a realtor up here, and she happened to be the realtor for the house.
Whoa.
And it was just so cheap that I was like, God, let's just get it, and even if we go up and visit a couple times a year. That's, whatever. And so, once COVID hit and everything happened, everything shut down, we just decided to give it a shot, move up here. And, the thought of having a drum room for me was very, very appealing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And did I read somewhere that you were born in Germany?
I was. My dad was Air Force. So just kind of, you too.
Yeah. So when did you leave Germany? Were you old enough to remember Germany at all?
No, we were,
okay.
I think anytime we were stationed, it was usually a couple of years. So,
yeah.
But, San Antonio, Lackland Air Force Base was always like the hub back and forth. So it was like Germany, San Antonio, Hawaii, San Antonio. Yep. And then we did 2 years in Crete in Greece, and then back to San Antonio for good. And I think my dad retired pretty soon after that.
Wow, that's almost my story exactly, except I was in England for 3 years. I wasn't born there.
Wow.
I was born in San Antonio because Dad was in the Air Force and stationed in San Antonio. Then we went overseas, spent 3 years in England. I was around between 8 and 11. The reason I ask is because I wanted to know if you were old enough in Germany to have Germany influence your music, your musical taste or your exposure or whatever.
Right.
You were obviously too young. But same thing, we went back and forth between San Antonio, did 3 tours, and Dad retired in San Antonio. So almost the same story as yours. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to see if Germany.
That is cool though. When you're around, like you were saying, you were 8 to 11, being in another country, and it's kind of the same. Like being in Greece, like being a kid, especially there, it was awesome because we really didn't have any TV or anything. So it's just like you always had to do stuff. And funny enough, though, I was in fourth. I think it was 4th grade, and they had offered us in school. They had offered us an elective class. So what the choices were Russian, because I guess they were like, maybe priming some of the kids up to be spies or something. Who knows? Right. But latch-hook rug making, and drums.
Oh.
So,
okay. So this is all starting to make sense.
No, it doesn't, because I took latch-hook rug making because I wanted a Snoopy rug so bad that, and I made it.
Oh, awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. I made a Snoopy rug. It was like about 2 by 2. And,
Look at that, folks. The things you learn on the Talk Louder podcast. The great Dave McClain once tried his hand at latch-hook rug making.
I thought I knew Dave McClain. I'm learning about Dave McClain.
You only know half the me.
Yeah. My mother is, and then we'll get off the topic. My mother is 2nd generation Greek. So while we were in England, we actually went to Greece on vacation and stayed with some of her relatives at their house. So we weren't staying in a hotel with all the other tourists. We were actually living the life. And I was old enough, of course, to remember it. And it left a mark. And yeah, I'm just grateful that a lot of those things I was old enough to remember. And for me, the reason I asked is because I remember living in England watching Top of the Pops on TV. And that was one of my earliest musical memories. And I was curious to know if you had any of the same with Germany.
No, I wish some of that. I didn't have any musical influence until, really when we got back,
Yeah.
Other than that, it was like
your roots of drumming are in San Antonio. Tell us about your earliest days and briefly mention, maybe your first couple of bands before you actually wrote a song and recorded it, kind of thing. And then we'll go through a little bit of retrospect from that point.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, started playing drums when I was 11, and just kind of like, just playing in my room. My parents tolerated me to play drums in the room, and really it was the person who really got me into actually playing in a band was Don Van Stavern, bass player from SA Slayer and Riot. And so
how old were you when you met him? 11, 12?
No, I may have been 12 or 13, definitely 13, because my first show ever was playing, maybe I just turned 14. I don't know, maybe 14, because my first show ever was playing his sister's little Halloween party to like 10 kids, you know, and I was petrified. I didn't want to do it. And Don, you know, like I was a pretty shy kid, you know, and so I would have never, ever made the move on my own to to do anything like that. So Don was like, come on, well, you know, it's going to be, you know, kill. Cause Don was like this kid. He was like Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley all wrapped up into one kid. And he was like 14 years old, you know, and he's like, it'll be killer, you know, we'll play it. And we did, we played this show, and we played like, you know, Thin Lizzy, UFO, Kiss songs, Judas Priest. I remember playing, Take on the World by Judas Priest, and it's like the slowest, back at the, and I remember playing that, and I remember being so tired, like my legs were just like worn out from playing Take on the World. And but you know, that was like the beginning of everything, where, you know, and
I'm just going to say this right now. That last little story about playing the Halloween party at age like 14, playing and by those bands who I'm wearing a Thin Lizzy shirt right now. I have those posters still on my walls.
yeah.
And I'm an old man, and I see some behind you. You have the same shit behind you. This may be my favorite part of this interview. I'm just going to say,
Dude,
just hearing you tell that story right there. This might be my favorite part of this episode.
Who are your drum heroes when you're exposed to that sort of music, and Vance Davern is kind of pushing you, and so you start, I guess, taking drums a little more seriously? Who are you emulating? Who you looking up to?
Yeah, so I mean, Peter Criss was my first dude, and I think Peter Criss was like my, you know, I always hear like a lot of like drummers a little older than me talk about the Beatles and how Ringo Starr was their guy where they could actually play what he was playing. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, to an extent, I mean, Ringo's amazing, but just how basic it was. And that was the thing with Peter Criss, I think. Like I could actually play. I was like, wow, I'm playing songs, you know. And then I'm staring at this album cover up here is Judas Priest, Unleashed in the East. And so that was one of my next dudes, you know, because Les Binks, like listening to Stained Class. And then when this album came out, it was like such hot rodded double bass drum, because they took those songs that they had done slower on the studio records, and Les Binks just sped them up with double bass and crazy fills. So that opened up a whole thing right there, you know, him, Tommy Aldridge, and Neil Peart, you know, of course.
Yeah.
So those are probably like a few of my main dudes, you know, and so having Don around, so Don was in and out of this band called Seance.
Okay.
And it was like a cover band, and they had like a few originals or whatever. And so he kind of pushed me into that thing too, you know? And those guys, like once, you know, I joined with them, and we were playing gigs all the time. You know, we were just playing anywhere. We'd play high schools. We'd play, I think our first gig was like playing this guy's New Year's Eve party. I think it was like ringing in 1980 or something. It was so crazy. Whoa. And he paid us in bags of weed.
Whoa.
And his name was Rick Pache, and he ended up, we used to play this strip club called Sugars that was over on, I think it was on Blanco. And that was crazy too, because I'm like 15 years old and we're playing in between strippers, and we're sharing a dressing room with strippers, and like what the,
that's when
like,
you
this
realize
is great.
This is for you, right?
Yeah. I was like, I was still scared. I was still this scared kid, but
who said that playing cover songs, it doesn't equal some type of sex education?
Yeah.
Oh man.
As far as you know, no one's breaking any laws other than you got paid in weed.
Right.
And okay, well, let's add some more offenses here because you
Yeah.
guys are underage in a bar. Are they serving alcohol?
Underage in a strip bar. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
With weed. Yeah,
With-
but nothing,
Yes.
nothing to see
Well,
here, folks.
Nothing
Too
going
much,
on.
man.
We're all 18.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that guy that we played that party for ended up buying that club, and he turned it into this place called the Rock and Roll Connection, which was it was like kind of became our home base. You know, we were kind of like the house band there all the time.
He bought the venue and turned it into a venue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They put this horrible like painting of a dude playing guitar on the side, and I remember it was pretty funny because he'd always have like on the weekend he'd always do these like menudo cookouts, right? And all of a sudden it became like there were all these banditos just hanging at this club all the time, and it was just like it was nuts, like stuff always going down. It was just, you know, fights all the time. And, you know, like I remember one time it was like this guy drinking at the bar, and Rick, the owner, was like, oh, that'll be, you know, $12, whatever. And he pulls out his brat. He goes, all I got is a $5. And Rick's like, hey, today's free beer day. So it was like, you know, things like that. But it was killer because we played out all the time, and I loved it. You know, I went from like this super shy kid to, you know, to like playing shows. Like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, you know, like, and, you know, and me and Don had that idea, like, this is what we're going to do. And then I got kicked out of that band because they found a drummer with a PA system.
Right.
So,
you know how I heard Ozzy got the Black Sabbath gig? He had a PA system.
dude,
that's how David Lee Roth got the Van Halen gig too.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's so classic.
It wasn't because he could sing. Oh,
It's crazy, man.
so let's run through your chronology or chronology. I can never say that word. But so you're already hooked up. You're already hooked up with Don at an early age. So how long until you guys start the infamous SA Slayer? How old are you, and when does that kick off? And take us back to those days.
That kicks off probably the week after I got kicked out of Seance for not having a PA system, like, for real.
So
and
you were on point. The way the story's going, you were on point. So
yeah, we're already getting to that part anyway. So It's like the story's kind of telling itself. But it's, you know, and that around that time too, it was like, you know, we used to have I know you remember, Jason, but maybe do you remember Joe Anthony on Kiss Radio?
Of course.
Yeah.
The world knows him.
I grew up in San Antonio, remember? So,
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So he, you know, he was like, you know, he was the one who got us all into bands like Moxie and, you know, all the bands that we listened to, all the killer stuff. And then he started playing, or one night he played Transylvania by Maiden. And we're like, whoa. And he was a dude who started playing all this stuff, you know, like all the like new wave of British heavy metal stuff. And me and Dom were just like, oh my God, you know, like this is it. So I think I'm going to say that me and Don put an ad in the paper, but maybe it was Bob or Art, the guitar players for SA Slayer. And it was basically like looking for dudes into new wave of British heavy metal, Angel Witch, Maiden, stuff like that. So that was it. You know, we all met up. They lived on the other side of town, and had a few singers, and that didn't work out. And then, but we were like, you know, we were playing all these songs. We were playing like Angel Witch songs. We're playing Raven songs, and just, you know, every Maiden song. And so there was this one singer that we wanted, this guy, Steve Cooper, who ended up being our singer for Slayer.
Right.
And he was in another band called Crown, and they used to do like Judas Priest covers and everything. So, and he was just killer. He would nail them. So we invited him down. It was like almost like, you know, he was like this legend in town. So when he came down, it was almost like having, you know, a rock star come into our garage at the Guitar Player Arts House where we practiced at. And we learned, I remember we auditioned him with Savage off St. Class.
Whoa.
And he just killed. It was so killer. And he dug it, and he ended up jamming with us. And that was it, man. We started doing our SA Slayer thing.
How did the transition go from Chris Kronk to Steve Cooper? How did that happen?
You know, we had two guys. We had this guy Harlan Glenn, and then Chris Kronk. And Chris Kronk was, man, a lot of that stuff is so foggy. But I just remember we kind of just knew that he wasn't going to be the guy like what we wanted, you know. And maybe it was a personality thing back then. We're all kids, you know. Like who knows what it was, but like he could sing. It was just. We wanted, like Steve had that kind of Merciful Fate thing, and, you know, we're super into Merciful Fate, and he just had that thing that we just kind of knew like he was going to be the dude. And that's what that kind of singing was what we wanted to go with. Yeah.
Now with SA Slayer, I mean, I've seen Prepare to Die at record conventions going for thousands of dollars. I mean, it's
really
crazy. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I have two.
How does that, you know, obviously when you were recording that record, you couldn't have any idea that one day this would be a highly sought after collector's item. But in hindsight, looking back at it with the perspective of age, you know, how do you feel about that, knowing that something you created as basically a young man is this highly sought after top dollar collectible now?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because we were just, you know, we were really just like, we were kids, but we had a direction, like we knew what we wanted, and we, you know, and but, you know, meeting the owner of Boss, Bob O'Neill, it was Bob O'Neill Sound Studios, meeting him kind of like took, you know, like going more in that direction. So, yeah, it was crazy. Like we were basically just going in and recording like a demo, you know, and he had his little record company that he was making. And, so, and it was just, yeah, I think we were just having fun. And that record kind of turned into, I remember, I think it was it Important? Yeah. Distributors, Important. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like they got it, and all of a sudden, like it just started, you know, getting this thing going on. So I think he impressed like
ads in Glossy magazine and decent reviews.
Yeah.
And worldwide distribution is a big deal for a kid band, you know.
Yeah, it was like on the Kerrang, like the import charts, mm-hmm. you know, and then it was on, you know, next to the other Slayer things, you know, sometimes it would be reviewed together.
Yeah, let's get into that a little bit. I wanted to mention Go for the Throat. You guys had a second record that basically didn't come out, and then later on was kind of shoved up into a corner and was put out basically it was a fan release.
Yeah.
It collected all the photos and the ideas and remastered it or whatever, and eventually it came out as a limited edition, and that's just as strong. It has Ron Jarzombek on it. You guys have replaced Art Villarreal. Mm-hmm. But you were moving in a certain direction, but then it all kind of faded away and the band had broken up. I want to get into the obvious point is going to be, because you've already mentioned Slayer, Los Angeles Slayer. So Show No Mercy comes out, and then all of a sudden there's two Slayers, and somebody has the great idea to get you guys back in the saddle just so you could play a show with LA Slayer.
Yeah.
What's your experience with that? What do you have memories of that? Because I'll fast forward just for a moment. You like have befriended members of Slayer via your work with Machine Head, being in the Bay Area, living in Los Angeles, da 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 da. I mean, you're hanging out with the guys in Slayer when you're like 30 years old and plus, and you're going, "Hey, remember that time when we were 20, when we were 19 down in San Antonio playing a show at the Via?"
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that. I mean, just fly on the wall. Has that ever happened?
It was never really like with,
You know what I mean?
it was never really like went in like in-depth conversation with anything like that.
No,
I think,
of course not.
I think more to they were just like, yeah, we're better than you guys. So just shut the hell up about this Slayer versus Slayer business,
Right.
And
that's funny.
but
I mean, later on, when you're, Tom Mariah's on your bus, he knows who you are. He knows you're the kid that play. Of course, that's what I'm trying to say.
And Tom wore that shirt that last tour they did. The Slayer, yeah. So
I mean, that's one of the infamous gigs in San Antonio metal history. Probably, I'll just go ahead and say it's the most infamous gig in San Antonio metal history
for sure.
And people that were there wear it like a badge of honor, and I get it. I mean, rightfully so. So I want to know what was it like when you got how did you get the news that there was a cease and desist order coming from the LA Slayer camp to your camp telling you guys to modify or change your band name? Because to this day, outside of Texas, if you say SA Slayer, people start scratching their heads and going, "You're talking about Slayer?" And you have to explain, no, there was this other band. So take us all the way back to the day when you guys received word from a lawyer or a manager or whatever. What was going on in your head at that time?
Man, I think, like, again, all that stuff is really fuzzy back then, the whole timeline of things. But from what I remember, it was, and I think
it was 84, had to be sometime in 84.
And I think kind of things were already going on, because there was a thing where Bob O'Neill, who was kind of fronting all the money did Prepare to Die. And then, it was like, hey, can either press more of Prepare to Die or go into the studio and do this other record. But by the time all that stuff was going on with the name, I'm pretty sure like me and Don and Steve Cooper, the singer, we were kind of doing, hanging with Mark Reale from Riot.
Here we go.
And and that kind of like that whole thing, we had, we were, I think we were pretty much starting a band with Mark at that point. So by the time we did the Slayer versus Slayer show, like we were done. Like we knew that was our last thing, and we were moving on.
We had Don on the podcast, and he talked about that sort of like turn, that little twist right there. He talked about moments where Mark was contacting him to basically say, "Hey, I'm in town. I want to hang out," because he's friends with Ricky Warhite. And I need to write some songs. Hey, Don, can you come and help me put these demos together or whatever? And basically Mark joined you and Don and started writing songs with you guys. And then Steve came in or something like that. So tell us about Slayer kind of back burner because of the name thing maybe. And then sure, you did the shows in 84, the last SA Slayer shows, in 84. And then you started playing, I mean, you guys were calling it Narita, which I thought was super smart. And I think that I saw you guys at the Cameo a couple of times. And this is just prior to you moving to Los Angeles. So talk about that time frame, what was happening with Mark, and the up and down of maybe why it didn't do anything other than just turn into Riot with Don and then Bobby Jarzambek, right?
Yeah. So when we met Mark, he was still, Riot was still going on. They had and we met him through, like you said, Ricky Warhite. And so I think they had just put out Restless Breed with Rhett Forrester. Like they had just gone through the whole change, going from Guy to Rhett. And, we meet Mark and we're like, my God, this Mark, like we're blown away. Like this is one of our idols. So
legit.
Yeah. And we're just like hanging out, and we start like hanging out more. Anytime he comes in, he's like hanging out with us. So, that tour cycle was going, the Restless Breed one. And then he was writing songs for the next record, Born in America. And he was like, hey, it's like, I've got these songs. Can we go down? We went down to Bob O'Neill's sound studio, and we recorded these, basically like the demos for Born in America, with like Gunfighter, Heavy Metal Machine, all these songs. And so we record them, and then we go up to New York with Mark. He invites us up. And so me, Don, and Steve go up, and we're there at SIR while Riot's getting ready to practice, and he's handing Sandy Slave and handing Rhett Forrester, just handing them the cassette that we did, and they're looking over at us like kids, like who are these kids? So like I think the Born in America tour cycle probably wasn't great, and I don't think the record was well received. So we just kind of kept jamming with Mark when he'd always stay in San Antonio, and we just started doing this thing, and it was just kind of like a natural progression for him to do something new with like younger dudes. And he had his producer Steve Loeb, and draw a blank on the other one. They were like the producer team. So they were into it, and we're like, call the band Narita, so people will have that kind of
reference,
familiar thing with Riot.
Yeah.
And Steve wasn't the original choice for that. Remember we went to LA to meet up. Like Mark knew of the singer, this guy, Tommy Gunn, Tommy Malamutaneous was his name. And he was in this band VVSI from LA. And so we borrowed my mom's Cadillac, this giant white Cadillac, and we put the same Cadillac that we used for the Slayer versus Slayer show. And I think one of the Slayer guys, the real Slayer, I think they like put some horns up on the front of it, like old like Boss Hogg's Cadillac. But
wow.
Anyway, me, Don, and Mark got in my mom's Cadillac with a U-Haul trailer on the back, and went out with all our gear and like jammed with this dude. It was so crazy, but it was great though. It was like a little vacation, because we were super into Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And we actually, I think you remember do you remember the cassette tape that we made that said Mike Damone's greatest hits? Do you remember that? And we had every line from Mike Damone in Fast Times, and we knew everything. So we went out to LA. We did like the Fast Time. We went to like Van Nuys High School, went to Sherman Oaks Galleria, and did the whole thing. And came back, then Tommy came out and actually like did one of the Narita songs, did a couple songs for a demo. It just fell apart. And then we, ended up with Steve, and that kind of fizzled out, and which took me to my next phase, which was one of the singers that Riot had tried out was Neil Turbin from Anthrax.
Okay.
And so me and Neil, we had kind of kept in touch. So when that didn't happen with Riot, he made the move out to LA, and he started his own band. So it's kind of I think Sandy Slavin from Riot like started kind of getting back into the picture. And so they were going to try like Riot Mach 4 or something like that, with Don and Mark and Rhett again.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of like my ticket out of San Antonio, where I just, talking to Neil, I flew out there and he got me a job. I started working with him the next day, and
Telemarketing, right?
telemarketing.
Neil
Yeah.
Turbin, of course, the original singer for Anthrax, who played on the recorded the Fistful of Metal record for anyone who doesn't know that.
If they don't know that, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, they probably aren't listening to the show, but I just wanted to clarify. So how long were you with Neil? How long did this Turbin sort of band last? Any length of time? And forgive me if any albums come out of that, or
no albums.
Okay.
We did, I think it was about a year, and maybe a little over a year.
And this
but
is
in
86,
that time,
86, right?
Yeah, I moved out in January of '86. So the guitar player of this band was one of the Mike Varney. Remember he used to have Mike Varney Spotlight and Guitar Player magazine.
Yeah.
And Doug Morrison, who lives in Austin now. Yep. I don't know if you guys know Doug.
Yeah, I do. But, I know Doug. He's good friends with our buddy Sean Weingartner, and Doug is actually. We did a Motorhead tribute with our buddy Sean Weingartner on bass and vocals, and I was second guitar. I was Jason McWurzel. And
he was filthy fast. What was the guy's name?
Fast
Eddie Clark.
Fast
Doug Clark.
Yeah.
Fast Doug Morrison.
Yeah, Fast Morrison. And actually,
cool.
Doug's a real cool guy, man. I haven't seen him in a long time, but yeah.
So I haven't talked to him in forever.
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
Hi, Doug Morrison. We love you, Doug Morrison.
I'm guessing the move to LA and hooking up with Neil Turbin is kind of, the next step is that's kind of the stepping stone that leads to Machine Head. Is that right? Yeah.
Well, Doug, the guitar player, he had gone to MI, the Musicians Institute, and he was living at this guy's apartment. So when I came over one day to go to, waiting to go to practice with Doug, I meet his roommate, and it's Ross Robinson. Before, this is Ross when he was just playing. He was in a band called Detente, they were signed to Metal Blade.
That's right.
And we just, when we met each other, it was like this instant complete connection. It was like, okay, we're best friends, and we still are, and everything's great. And so during this time,
and Ross Robinson is now a known producer. Is that right?
Big time.
I think he might. Yeah, he's done.
Yeah, he's sold a few records.
Well, some people don't know that unless they read the fine print, right?
Only people that don't know who Neil Turbin is don't know who Ross is.
Here we go. Okay, continue.
But Ross's credits, we should mention, are pretty crazy. I mean, I think he did Sepultura. He's done Korn. He did a lot of the new metal bands that sold ballistic.
We don't have time. We need to do a whole show on Ross Robinson.
It's like a big old list. Yeah. A scroll.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So the he and the bass player in Detente were like, they were always trying to get me in Detente. They were like, oh, we want you to play for Detente, but the drummer from Detente and their singer, this chick Dawn Crosby, were a thing. So it's always caused like this big turmoil going, between Dawn and them. And so they ended up splitting up, and then me and Ross formed. We had a few bands together, and which were kind of like Detente offshoots with another female singer, and then another band after that called Murder Car. Mm-hmm. And then that's pretty much, I can go into the next thing, how I actually, when I got into Sacred Reich and how that whole thing unfolded.
So this stuff with Ross is 87, 88?
The stuff the bands with Ross, there was Catalepsy. The Catalepsy and Long Disorder were basically the same band, just different names. That was about probably 88. Okay. 88, and then Murder Car was Yeah, 88, 89. Then Murder Car was like 89, 90.
Because I have fond memories of us hanging out at the Oakwoods when the Toys were out there
Yeah,
recording with
yeah,
Max, and you would come over and hang out. And I remember
totally.
going over to yours and Ross's apartment a couple of times, maybe to pick you up or something.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
So
good times.
it was good times. I remember
have a
watching you
picture.
on the, huh?
You remember watching
You
what?
do. It was
Yeah, I have
never,
a picture from the Oakwoods of you and me.
oh my God,
And
really?
Brian Bowen, or you and me and Mike Vasquez from Cyrus at the
Yeah.
Oakwoods, and you have like hair. And I have
did
a
have
picture
hair.
of you getting out of the car when me and the Toys dudes were dropping you off. We had those Mustangs that the label rented us, and we were dropping you off, and you have hair, but you're wearing the like anthrax, you know, you got the
Oh, my
bill-
Dogtown. I had the Dogtown hat.
yeah, you had the Dogtown hat all flipped up. That was the style, all suicidal, Dave suicidal.
Yeah. I didn't want to tell people that I was starting to go bald, but everybody knew. But
Well,
yeah,
it's no secret now, so you weren't. It's cool. Who cares? No one cares.
Yeah.
I didn't care. No one cares. You
But
so Sacred Reich was so after all of that, but they're in Phoenix. So what was
They're
the
in-
connection?
yeah, so they're
and by the so I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're now currently on your second leg with Sacred Reich. So we're talking about
Yes.
the first time, right? Okay, so go
He's
First
got
ahead.
time.
9 lives.
yeah.
Yeah,
Dave McClain has 9 lives.
right. So currently
Man.
with Sacred Reich, but we're talking about your first affiliation with Sacred Reich. And Jason's asking, how did you go from California to Phoenix, where they were based?
Yeah, so this is 91 now. And so Sacred Reich was always when they put out Surf Nicaragua, like that was one of my, like love this band, and The American Way came out, and I was a fan. And so I knew I'd met this bass player through the bass player that I had in Turban. They were both like MI guys. And his name was Troy Gregory. And
yeah. He was in
so-
Prong for a second, wasn't he?
yeah,
And then,
Flotsam.
and then
So
wait, he was Flotsam and Jetsam too, right? Yeah.
yeah. So
I
that
met
whole
Troy a
time
couple
right
times.
then, like Troy went up and auditioned for, he went up and auditioned for Metallica.
Right.
And obviously Jason got the gig. And then, so I'm buddies with Troy, and he's a great bass player, everything. And all of a sudden he moved out to, he's like, hey man, I'm moving to Phoenix. I'm taking Jason Newsted's spot in Flotsam. I was like, killer. So he calls me one day, and so Sacred Reich and Flotsam basically practice next door to each other at this industrial park place. So he calls me up, and
I want to go there and just stand between the rooms right now and like,
dude, it was such a metal place. Like
Oh,
Sepultura ended up there, and it was just like, that's like back then in Phoenix, like that's where you would go rent these like basically like giant garages,
Yeah.
And so he called me and he said, hey, Sacred Reich's looking for a drummer. Gave me Phil's number, and I called Phil and kind of was like, hey, I'm Dave McClain, and I'm gonna be your next drummer. I'm Marty McFly, your Density.
He's
So,
like, Dave? Dave's
he
not here.
did. He said he said okay. So that
obviously.
That's a
Yeah.
solid deal right there.
You know,
yeah,
I had just met the Sacred Reich fellas for the very first time just a few weeks ago, right? And they were the nicest guys in the room.
Yeah.
All of them were the sweetest guys, like I had known them for years.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder that you always had a home.
Yeah, I mean, me and Phil kept in touch. You know, when I left to join Machine Head, I think there may been a time, maybe, I don't know, maybe 6 months or something, where it wasn't bad or anything, but it was just like, he didn't really grasp like, what, why why I left or whatever. But yeah, but we've kept in touch, the whole 23 years that I was in Machine Head.
Wow.
And just stayed great friends, and it's, yeah, they are the nicest dudes, and it's great being back in the band and just having fun. It's just a good time. So
you were out in Phoenix as a member of Sacred Reich, and then your next step is back to California, not just California, but Northern California, to the Oakland area. How does that connection happen?
If you could set it up to us, I just have a request. Can you set it up to where, how many records did you make with Sacred Reich your first go around before you ended up in Machine Head?
So when I first joined Sacred Reich, we had the first tour was happening in like 2 weeks. When they got me, they were like, okay, we're going to Europe with Sepultura. This is on the Arise tour, which is like,
wow,
insane, and it's just like, just being a fly on the wall for just some of the tours that I've seen has been amazing, So when I first joined, we had 2 weeks, and we did this little, like an EP thing. The song was called A Question. That was one little thing. And then I did, the independent record was the next album that we did after all that touring happened. But we did the Europe tour, and then we came over we did it in the States, and it was called the New Titans on the Block. So it was Sepultura, Sacred Reich, Napalm Death, and Sick of It All, it was just crazy because Sepultura was just, they were coming up, and they were like the hot new thing, and they were these dudes from Brazil, and they just, they were just, everything about them was killer. The way they talked, like, kind of broken English, like, oh, dude, like, it was the heaviest thing you've ever heard. And then they'd go on stage, and it was like, okay, here's like the next kind of Metallica thing going on, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, back on track. Independent was the record, and then the Heel record was the last record that we were actually still, I think we were still mixing the record when I was going out to audition with Machine Head, and it had just become the thing with Sacred Reich had become almost everybody had cut kind of lazy, and there wasn't really anything going on as far as like a plan, and we were all kind of, morale seemed to be pretty low, even though we were doing a record and everything. And so Igor had put out word that, like, he knew that Machine Head was looking for a drummer, and he suggested me to somebody else who was helped them look for a drummer. So, Rob called me, was like, yeah, man, check it out. And he was telling, they were on tour. They were just finishing up the final tour for the Burn My Eyes album. And I think because I'd met them on that last thing, and I think Will Carroll from Death Angel was playing drums with them on that final thing. And so I told Rob, I said, yeah, absolutely, man, I'll come out. Like, I'd met the dudes, and they were just, things were going up for them, and they were just like, we're doing it, like, this is one track mind of being a huge band, and so I had a little talk with the Sacred Reich guys, and they seemed to have kind of, had a turnaround about the way they were feeling. So I had actually called Rob, and I said, hey, look, do you talk to the Sacred Reich guys, and they seem like they're kind of back on track. So I'm going to decline coming out there to audition. And he's like, all right. And then a couple of days went by, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Kind kind of things went back to the original thing. So went out there anyway, auditioned with the guys, and a couple weeks later they called me back, and then I'm planning my move out to the Bay Area, you know, which was like this whirlwind, just, you know, because they're coming off the successful record Burn My Eyes, and then I'm, you know, coming into the situation where we're like when I went out and auditioned with them, we ran through the whole Burn My Eyes album a few times, and then after that they started showing me some new riffs. I was like, okay, I think everything went pretty good, you know. They're showing me new parts.
Yeah.
And so, you know, once I got out there, it was like this whole whirlwind of just getting, you know, right into pre-production, like writing songs for, you know, 3 or 4 months, and then getting into the studio and everything. So it was pretty insane. It was awesome.
Yeah. Wow. Your story sounds a little bit like when Kirk Hammett was leaving Exodus. It was like, you know, he felt like Exodus was kind of languishing, and Metallica was this band that was on the rise, and there was an opportunity, and he jumped. And so, I kind of, without knowing anybody involved, I can understand where one thing looks like it's not going at the pace you would like it, and the other thing looks like a rocket ride, and they're actually calling me to be part of this. So I might miss an opportunity if I don't take advantage of it. And then, you know, and then you lasted 23 years. That's insane. 23 years with Machine Head, went on to be recognized as one of the biggest metal bands in the world for a certain period of time.
Measure it with releases. How many releases did you do with Machine Head?
Let's see. One Thing's Changed, Burning Red, Supercharger, Acid Blackening.
We're doing math here.
8?
I'll talk louder. 8 records.
Yeah. I think 8.
Wow.
Not including the live records or whatever, but I think 8.
That's a hell of a run, and a lot of those albums were critically acclaimed and well received. There was, though, you guys did take some heat for the Burning Red and the Supercharger record, because there was a bit of a shift in the musical direction. And so was that a democratic decision among the band members to sort of shift gears and try something new, or was that basically Rob's direction and you guys kind of just followed along?
The Burning Red was the biggest change. And that's Ross Robinson actually produced that record. And so I think Rob always kind of guiding the ship, you know what I mean? And I think like one of the big, for me, I think two of the big things were production style was different from the Colin Richardson style of the first 2 records, you know? And then like a whole shift change of like, you know, like some rapping going on in songs and just a way darker produced record. And the way we looked was like really threw people off, because here we are, like we're wearing all this crazy, like weird kickwear stuff. And we've got a new guitar player, Rue Luster came in, and and he was also a songwriter. So he kind of took Logan's spot, where it would be Rob and Logan all the time, like the main songwriters. And then when Rue came in, he was right there, you know, as the second writer. So his style was a little different too. And, you know, I think the biggest thing was the production, and then just the way we looked, because like it was just ridiculous, you know.
Yeah.
going from kind of, you know, you're kind of going from just, I guess, normal-ish looking clothes, you know, and then you're going like this crazy, like we just went to Hot Topic, and it was weird.
So how did that meeting go? That's interesting, because you kind of go from a traditional metal look to something that's more aligned with, you know, maybe the new metal and the rap sort of movement.
Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of, from what I remember, like it was fun, because we were just kind of playing like, I don't know, we were just kind of playing like rock star things or whatever, we're going to dress different and we're going to do this and, and the only thing I didn't do during that everybody else was doing was the makeup thing, which I had done way back in the Narita days with Mark Reality.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm way past the makeup stage, guys, but I'm all about dyeing my hair, cheetah print and all this stuff. But
you guys were just clowning around, just kind of going with the trend maybe, or
I mean, we were all on board with it. Like we were just trying to we kind of bought into the whole thing of, look, doing 2 records like we did, like going from Burn My Eyes to The More Things Change, which wasn't like a big departure. And it didn't really take the band to that next level. So I think, I think there was probably a lot of thought where it was just like, this new kind of stuff is coming around, we can, Ross is going to produce a record. It can take us into that other, that other thing of like, cause he had already done Roots too,
True. Yeah. And all of a sudden Korn and stuff like that was really, really big. The first Korn record. Yeah. I recall a conversation you and I had about how that first Korn record is kind of like this shift in like heavy music because it's leaning itself into all of these other things.
Yeah.
Whatever Marilyn Manson was doing and whatever Korn was doing and what time it was on what year it was, the climate was different. I just call that the trend. And that seems to be a bad word to some people, but it's not. Everybody follows trends. Why do you wear black all the time? Well, I like heavy metal. I'm expressing rage, whatever. I think that the look that you guys had was just going with where your music was. If you felt like it was going to fit, it meant everything about what time it was, what the climate looked like.
We were following the trend, like you said. Like we didn't make that trend. Like that was something that was like, it was, and it's one of those things when you look back and you're, should we have done it or should we did it? You know what I mean? There's nothing, you can't change anything, but it was definitely like, what can we do? Oh, this is cool. And it was, and it was
pretty much every band has done it.
Yeah. Everybody's done it in one way or another.
Yeah.
Sometimes
fairly normal, Even pop songwriters changed the color of their tunes for a second,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then you guys almost did a complete 180 because then you come back with Through the Ashes of Empires and probably your magnum opus is The Blackening. And those records, a lot of people were going, oh my God, they're back to form. Not only are they back to form, they're back in a big, badass, radical way. And I don't think, The Blackening is one of those records where, it might not get mentioned in the same breath with Master of Puppets or Rain and Blood, but if you were to compile a list of 25 of the greatest thrash metal albums or whatever, I'd be willing to bet that record makes that list.
Yes.
So you guys you went from this Ross Robinson sort of influence, sort of departure, and then you come roaring back with these 2 records. So tell me, what is the meeting like after the 2 records that were sort of, for lack of a better term, more new metal? And how is that then a democratic decision, or is it more of a Rob thing saying, okay, those 2 records didn't work the way we planned it. Let's go back to what we do and let's go do it with steroids now.
No, that was, so at that point, after the Burning Red and then Supercharger, so it was a point where we were off of Roadrunner at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're like, we've got to find a new home. Right. So we do this 3-song demo, and it was bad. Like the songs were just like still in that vein of like trying to be almost like a radio band. And I remember we were doing this like back, like we were kind of just, we were trying to sell ourselves again, you know? And so we had this demo, and then we were making this video of like an electronic press kit kind of thing, you know? And we're talking into the camera. We're like, oh, this is our, you know, this is our new thing that we did, and we hope you enjoy. We're trying, and it just made me want to throw up. Like it made me just, and we did have a meeting after that. And I said, look, man, I said, this could be it. And I don't want to go out. I don't want to go out with this, you know, because we were trying to get signed to, like, you know, I think David Draymond was doing a label at that time. And that's what we were trying to get into, that kind of, that realm, you know, you know, and I just told the guys, I'm like, if we're going to go out, I don't want to go out like this. I don't want to go out with these songs. I want to go out being fucking heavy again.
Yeah.
And that was, and everybody, and I think everybody was probably feeling that same way of like, oh my God, we're trying to sell ourselves to whoever, you know, to give us a shot. It almost felt like begging or something, you know?
Yeah.
Because it was scary, because we were off Roadrunner, and that was like the band's home. And that was where, you know, the people who worked there, they were almost family to the band, because they would wake up and they would think about Machine Head, you know?
Yeah.
So me and Rob went out and saw Judas Priest one night. Back when they had Ripper singing, and we were talking to the guys, you know, we were talking to Glenn and KK and everything. And that was like a big turning point, I think, in that whole process of getting back to doing things. You know, I remember we went back, and like me and Rob were working on these songs again, and getting heavy again. And we were basically at that point a 3-piece, because Aru had just left the band. And so I felt like, okay, I need to, Aru, you see, you know, it was like Rob, Logan, Rob, Aru. I was like, I need to kind of pick up some slack, and I've always played guitar. And so I was like, I think I need to pick up that slack and start writing a bunch of stuff. So I started writing just whatever came to mind, and started giving them to Rob, which became Imperium, the lead off song of the record. Like I had like the part of the guts for the beginning of, you know, the beginning, middle of the song. And then Rob finished it off with this killer just ending to the song. Probably, I don't know, four or five songs on that record I had, you know, was like started from my riffs and everything. So it just turned into this, that record just turned into this, like this new thing, you know, and it just felt good. We felt super energized by it again. We're playing this music that's like meaning stuff to us, you know. Like the first time we ever played, we made it through Imperium with all the parts. We all just started laughing with each other, just like, that was insane. It was like being on a, you know, like a roller coaster or something. It was like, wow, we got something here. It's cool. And you know, that brought us back to Roadrunner. Like Roadrunner got back on board with it. They were super stoked with it. And then going into the Blackening, we just kind of, we toured our asses off for Through the Ashes, man. Because we really, that was like a rebuilding kind of thing, because at that point there's all these other bands, like a whole new wave, like Shadows Fall, Lamb of God, you know, all these bands that are, it's like this whole new wave of American metal or whatever. And so we toured our ass off, man, for that record. I remember we did a European tour. It was 3 months long for that one. And, you know, coming off the record, we felt great about it. And then, you know, we had, you know, Phil Demmel was in the band at that point, like towards the end of the writing for Through the Ashes. And then going into the next one, the Blackening, we were this band. We felt like a band again. You know, we felt great. We felt empowered. We felt Yeah, like the self-esteem of the band was good,
You
Yeah.
were lost, and now you've been found. You needed
totally.
Yeah.
needed to, there was like a cleansing or something, right?
It was.
You
Uh-huh.
It
mentioned
really was. Yeah.
you mentioned hanging out with the Judas Priest guys as being a bit of a turning point of sorts. Was there anything particular about that hang that sort of steered you back in this direction, or was it just more coincidence? Was there any words of wisdom exchanged backstage, or was it just seeing your heroes kind of reminding you why you got into this in the first place?
Yeah.
Well, and
Totally.
before he answers, it would talk about a band that has changed their look, at their style and their look. I mean, as early as 79 and 80, I mean, they were like the Beatles or something. It's like every record had this different color to it.
Yeah. And that was one of the things right there, like that we just kind of like, okay, this, seeing them like with Ripper, and they were great. They sounded killer and like just doing their thing. And, you just kind of like the next day we were just kind of like, man, that was so fucking cool. Like hanging out with those dudes, and they're still doing their thing, and they're still, they'd gone through the things. And I think we kind of looked at that like, okay, we did the Burning Red, we did this other thing, and we were almost going to do this other thing with this new demo stuff, and we kind of look like, let's, thank God we didn't do that. Let's, it really gave us a lot of inspiration to just be heavy, heavy again.
Just seeing them
awesome.
and
Yeah.
from the inside out, you're watching the show and then you're talking to them, and it's like, wait a minute, they're just being what they need to be today. And if it doesn't feel right, it's gonna be obvious.
I love that story. Because I can see it. I can imagine it. You start letting other influences sort of steer you a little bit, and then you have this reminder of why you got into it in the first place, and you see it playing out live right in front of your face, and they're all these years later and older and everything, and you're like, they're still doing it. That's why we got into this. We need to reassess what we're thinking and get back to our roots and why we got into this,
Yeah,
I love that.
because it was kind of the same. Like when I remember seeing Judas Priest when Iron Maiden opened up for them on Point of Entry.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it was so weird, because I was like, I'm done with Priest at that point, like I'm done. Like Iron Maiden Killers, like I walk into the arena and Clive Burr's kit setting up. And I just remember walking around while Judas Priest was on, like, just being a dumb kid thinking, oh, like, I'm, I don't like this anymore. I'm heavy. I like Iron Maiden. This is, this is my thing. And so
see,
I think we kind of
trend. That's a trend following mindset right there. And you don't know it when you're that young. You don't realize that that's what's going on. But that's why following a trend is not. I used to think that was a bad taste in my mouth when I said that. It's not. It's just you're
it can
just
be part of the growth.
Yeah,
it can be a step along the way sometimes, and sometimes sometimes the turn in the road will be permanent, and sometimes it'll be temporary, and you'll come back to where you were. But it's all part of the growth process. I think, especially when you're creative and artistic.
We could sit here, all of our favorite band, like just Rush, for example. You could just look at those changes. You know what I mean? It was just so. Yeah.
You mentioned Iron Maiden, and I know that Machine Head at some point did a recording of "Hallowed Be Thy Name" for some sort of Maiden tribute or something.
Yeah.
Being a Maiden fan myself, a bit of a Maiden freak, why was it that song? What led you to "Hallowed Be Thy Name"? Because I'm sure that there must have been some heavy discussion among you guys which Maiden song to cover.
Yeah, I think at the time that was when we did that. I think it was we were on the Blackening. We were doing Blackening, so I think that song, out of most of the Maiden songs, to us felt like just, well, first of all, it was Number of the Beast. So like for for all of us, that record was, you know, unanimously like our record, you know, that or Killers or whatever, but Number of the Beast. And so we kind of felt like that song in particular really fit in with what we were doing on the Blackening, as far as like a song like Halo, where it's this long song with all these different parts and all these different things. So like when we did it, we were like, man, this, like, we felt like that could actually fit on the record. So
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. The timing of, I didn't realize the timing of the Blackening had such an influence on that choice, but that makes
You guys
perfect
did a
sense.
Priest cover too, didn't you? Do the Sentinel? Is that right?
We did a Sentinel on the next record.
Yep.
Unto the Locust. Yeah, we did that and Witch Hunt by Rush.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
So cool.
We're just looking for the easy stuff, right? So, okay.
Yeah.
So after 23 years, I mean, that is a fantastic run. What ultimately
in the Bay Area too? You're in the Bay Area. I almost see and this is kind of like a thing for me because, do you know Harold Oyman?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had him as a guest on here, and I was just like freaking out having this like legendary, like sort of Spicoli type guy on the show because he's seen it all.
He's seen it. He's photographed it all. The pictures he has.
Murder in the Front Row. Yeah. He has supplied the world since his childhood with visions of, like, vicarious visions of the Bay Area metal scene, rock and roll scene. You could dumb it down a million times. And the guy loves, you know, he likes rock and roll, and he likes everything we like, Kiss, whatever, right? And I was just like, here, I'll just move out of the Harry O thing because he was awesome to talk to, and I was extremely excited to talk to him because he talk about boots on the ground. That's him,
dude.
No matter what, the stories alone, I was just freaking. Anyway, fast forward to my question, which was basically, you were like at Lars Ulrich's house. You have been to the Bay Area world of like the things that brought us life-changing, I mean, real metal, real American metal. Like the earliest inception of thrash music was, sure, there was Slayer and Dark Angel and, you know, and Megadeth, and, you know, Metallica's from Los Angeles, but when, not to go historical, but when Metallica goes to San Francisco for the first time with the original lineup, and all of those kids, because they're all kids, they see Metallica, and Metallica, that was fun, let's drink beer and take a bunch of pictures. Harry O's there taking pictures, and then they go back to LA, and then everyone in San Francisco is going, okay, we need to play faster, we need to scream harder, we need to, everything changed.
Totally.
So Metallica, to get Cliff, everybody knows the history lesson. You became part of that, of course, decades later through this thing. You texted me one time, literally saying, "Dude, I'm hanging out with Lars at Lars's house. Me and Rob, da 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 da." You don't remember texting me that? I was just like, "Oh,
dude, I do," because it was because of the jukebox that he had in his house, and I was like, "My God, this is like if me and McMaster had a jukebox, this would be it." the Dave and Jason jukebox
just had everything.
It was all just like, you know, the new wave of British heavy metal thing. It had, you know, all that stuff, but more. It had, you know, just all the stuff we grew up on, like Thin Lizzy stuff too, you know, Riot probably in there. And it was just like,
I'm sure he loves
like,
Riot.
Yeah. So
and a jukebox, and it was insane.
Unreal.
So back to my question. After 23 years and this really amazing career, what was it that prompted you to leave?
Sacred Reich needed a drummer again, dude, and he couldn't leave his good people just sitting without a drummer. They needed the time had come.
Yeah. For me to, it was just time. And for, like to sit there and talk about all the things that led up to that, it's kind of like just stuff that, um, you know, I would tell you guys in a private, like a private thing. But I think for people who, because I love when people come up to me with Machine Head albums,
Of course.
any album,
Of
and I'm
course.
like, it's amazing. Like for me to have been, because those records, like specifically, like, well, the more things change, and then like Through the Ashes, Blackening, like those records were like a part of people's lives, and that's like something that's being a musician, like that's when that happens, like that's the lucky part, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to talk about all the things that led up to me.
You also influenced
on.
the sound of that band. You influenced the sound of that band with those records that you mentioned.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I was a big, I was a part of that. So for me to talk about all that stuff that led up for me personally to leave, and it's just something that, like, I talk about it with my friends, like all my friends, like I will tell people or whatever, but just for fans and everything, I think it's probably better for them just to, if they want to stay a fan of Machine Head or whatever, like totally, man. Like you don't need to know all the stuff that was going down that led Phil Demmel to leave the band. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like a kid going through and their parents are getting divorced. Like you don't need to know all the stuff that's going down with your parents. Like that's just, so
well,
Yeah.
that
it was
turns
things, and it was just something that I didn't want to be a part of anymore, and that was, partly the music, the direction of everything, and a lot of other things. And it was just, for me personally, it was just something that, like, I had just to be happy. For me, like that's, I was at a point, for me, it's like just to be happy with anything you're doing is more important than anything. So,
Yeah.
and then to get back with Sacred Reich was like, my God, it couldn't have been more perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, like every day I'm just stoked to be back with these dudes who are my friends, and we all get along and everything's cool and fun.
So Rob Flynn put out a statement upon your leaving a public YouTube little video, and I thought, I did feel like he was fairly eloquent about your leaving, and I do feel like he said something that stuck with me, that hit me correctly. You and I going so far back and being friends. He said something like, Dave has this way of telling you what's wrong, and it's always he's always right, and he says it in a way where he's just literally telling you how he feels. And I can't deny that when someone is telling me exactly how they feel about it, because it's exactly how they fucking feel. And I can't change the way someone feels if they're letting it all out to me. And it's true, and I can see it. And he was basically giving you the compliment of you. And it's very true, because I know you. If something ain't right, you can't live in that room when something's not right.
Right.
And he said it in a way that I thought was very, well, I said eloquent, and he said it right. And I took it like, okay, well, if Rob's able to see that about, a guy who feels like he has to leave the band to be happy and healthy in another room, with another band, or just to be out, as amicably as possible, I was like, right on, Rob. And that's one of the moments I feel like there was a connection that I made with Rob when I used to watch his I'll call him rants or whatever. I used to watch him fairly often. It's, he'd get political and shit, but the one about excuse me, the one about you having to walk away felt like it was done okay.
No comment.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine because you're on the inside and I'm not.
Yeah.
But I feel like what he said was something that someone on the outside, because I don't know Rob. Hi, Rob. How
Right.
you doing? Good to see you again. That's all. You were standing right there whenever me and Rob would converse, and that was it. Hey, dude. What's up?
Right.
So.
Yeah. I didn't mean to open up a can of worms. I just wanted, I was just curious if it was something a little, not that big a deal. But the fact of the matter is you've got a lot to be proud of with those years in Machine Head. I mean, a lot to be proud of. I mean, 23 years and one of the biggest metal bands that toured the world multiple times.
Monumental.
And then, as you say, when it was the end of the road, what better way than to rebound with your buddies in Sacred Reich, which is where you are today. So, congrats to you. I'm happy that it's all working out the way it has. And you definitely have a discography that you can certainly be proud of with Machine Head. I mean, the blackening alone, like I said, and I don't mean to say that's all there is because there's certainly much more, but that's one of those landmark albums that very few people get to claim as one of their own, and you did it. So congratulations.
Yeah, that thing had some legs. That's for sure. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, you
mentioned something earlier.
You guys were angry.
Yeah.
Came back with fangs.
Exactly.
Angry.
You mentioned something earlier about kids coming up to you with a Machine Head record or any record for that matter. What's the craziest or the coolest thing a fan has ever approached you with to autograph, or a memory that a fan has triggered, or a certain enthusiasm that you'll never forget from somebody meeting you?
Oh man. Probably the thing that just makes so many weird, like just emotions and thought, like go through when somebody comes up and they would have my face tattooed on their body. Wow. That is crazy. I mean, I understand because on my leg, I've got like my drum idols, some of my drum idols on my leg tattooed. So I understand that. But like when people come up and they like there was a dude who came up and he had me and Tommy Lee on his leg. I'm like,
wow.
Like I understand Tommy Lee, but where did I get into this whole thing? And it's just like, it's just bizarre and it's awesome, but it's just like seeing your face on somebody's body is like crazy. And then you sign it. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And here I am asking the question, thinking you're going to tell me about some record that you signed, and it goes a lot deeper than that. No pun intended. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. So
wow.
But I love all that stuff. Like especially when people come up and they have an SA Slayer album or something. Yeah. And I'm like, whoa. And sometimes they come up and they have like the actual Rainforest Records one. I'm like, man, that's cool. And one guy, there was a guy we played in Joliet, Illinois, and he was one of the loaders, one of the guys working the show. And he goes, Prepare to Die is the best album ever. And I was like, well, I'm going to disagree with that, but I appreciate you saying that. But I was, like,
he either read the Wikipedia page before he went to work, just so he could have some ammo to give you, when he ran into you,
right? Or
he believed that shit.
Yeah, he was either just completely like jerking my chain, or he was so serious that he just loves Prepare to Die.
Well, let's hope it was the latter.
So here's the most important question of the interview, Dave. Where can we get one of those shirts? Yeah, for those who are listening, for those who are listening and not watching, Dave is wearing an SA Slayer shirt without the SA. It's the Slayer, the original logo with that upside down hatchet in the place of the L.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've seen one of those before. Can people buy those?
this one, and I think like Jason, the one that you had, the Slayer versus Slayer, doesn't Louis print those?
Rodney Dunsmore, I think, did the batch. The guy who spearheaded those Slayer versus Slayer is Mike Solis from Militia.
Oh, okay.
He designed that poster, and it's a shirt of the poster, the Slayer versus Slayer.
But this one, I think Louis used to play drums for Devastation. He's still in San Antonio. He prints up shirts, so I don't know. I'm still waiting on my Slayer versus Slayer shirt. So I'm gonna have to talk to him about that.
I can get you one of those with a phone call.
Well, the one that you're wearing is awesome.
It's so good.
Try Hog Wild, because he supplies Hog Wild with those.
Yeah. I got to ask you one last question about Slayer versus Slayer, because it's such a monumental gig in the history of Texas metal, and you were there. You played. I mean, we rarely get a chance to talk to somebody who was actually on the stage and part of that gig. We've heard the stories. I think Bob Catlin was, working at the record store and met up with the guys during the day, and there was some banter about, we're playing with these Slayer guys. Do you know anything about them? And he goes, I heard they were good. And there was kind of a chuckle, and there was some. So from your perspective, it's Slayer versus Slayer in San Antonio. Was there any sense of rivalry or camaraderie, or was it all just a big goof for you guys? Was there any interaction with the Slayer guys before or after the show, where there was maybe some words exchanged one way or the other? Anything? Yeah,
there was I remember hanging out with those guys, especially after the show, and like while we were loading out and doing all the things and just hanging around. They were super cool. Like the one I thought, I remember Kerry being like the cool, like, I was like, man, that dude's so awesome. He was like hanging out and talking and everything. And, they were making fun of, like I said, they were making fun of our Cadillac that we were taking our gear in. And, but they were driving, they had like
Tom's yellow Camaro, I think.
Yeah. I think it was a yellow or red one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a Camaro, like the old one with and I think they had 5 people, because I think Lombardo's wife or girlfriend, I don't know what she was at the time, she was out. And I just remember thinking of a buddy of mine used to have that same Camaro, and when you have 5 people in the car, somebody was getting that hump in the back.
Yeah,
that thing is not comfortable.
Yeah, and
they were on tour, and I just remember seeing that car going. I think I actually said, like, "Who's got the hump seat?" Because but they were cool, man. They were super cool, and I think Dave Lombardo might have stolen one of my my cymbal stands, but.
Really? Did you ever get it back?
And I think I never got it back. And
okay.
I think I did ask him. I think I did mention it to him too, but there's no way to prove that. There's no memory bank of that.
Well, so, next time you're on tour,
let's just go with the fact that he stole my cymbal stand.
Yeah, and the next time you're on tour with one of his bands, you just steal one of his.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get your drum tech to talk to his drum tech about it.
Well, thanks for indulging us.
He's totally welcome to have my boom stand.
Thanks for indulging us with the Slayer versus Slayer stories, because that's such an important gig to so many people, and it doesn't come from a better source than the guys that were on the stage. And
we've had a few people that were there that night in the flesh on the Talk Louder podcast. Yeah. Mike Solis, Don Van Stavern, and now Dave McClain. We're about to have Ron Jarzambek on the show.
Ooh, Ronnie.
We can talk to him about it a little bit.
We had Bobby on.
Me, Ronnie, Don, and Jason, we redid one of the SA Slayer songs from that record. We did Prepare to Die.
I heard about that.
Yes, we did. Someone asked me about that. Someone in San Antonio at Igniter was opening for Riot a couple of weeks ago, and somebody... more than one person asked me, "Hey, I heard you did Prepare to Die with the Slayer guys." I'm like, "How do you know about that?" People talk, man. People talk. And I'm
People talk.
it's not released or anything. I mean, it's just a rough mix, and I love it, but I don't know how. What are you asking me? Is that ever going to come out? And I was like, well, it's not a record. It's just one song. I don't know. Yay, one song.
One song, yeah.
I think
it was
people will be
cool.
happy with one song.
It's real cool. It was fun.
It was very cool. Maybe we'll play it for people one day or something.
That would be nice. Have a 4.5 minute listening party.
There you go.
Yeah.
And we'll make T-shirts. We'll make Slayer T-shirts for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
So have you seen this coffee table book that's now in its second pressing called As Viewed from the Pit, which is a historical
I haven't.
Juan Herrera.
What? Really? Stand by.
It's called As Viewed from the Pit. It was put out by a guy named Juan Herrera out of San Antonio, and it's basically a time capsule of early Texas metal. So
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude.
It's Watchtower, it's
you remember those
Juggernaut, it's SA Slayer.
That's so cool. I haven't seen that.
You don't know anything about this, huh?
It's Carry On, Watchtower, Militia, SA Slayer, Juggernaut. It's your whole scene,
Got
dude.
little handbills in it.
Wow.
Yeah. You're in there. I know because I saw the there's an SA Slayer handbill that was red ink on a yellow background.
Well, there's a lot of people that have. I mean, it's got old flyers. They printed old flyers in the back.
Oh, cool.
It's all in here, but those, dude.
Yeah, Dave needs one of those.
There's me with Liliana.
Oh my God, Liliana.
Yeah. And it just goes. There's Bob. There's Bob on the adjacent page right there with the hangman's noose around his neck from Juggernaut cameo.
Oh my God.
You gotta have one of these, man.
Yeah.
I gotta get one of those. So that dude's basically like the Harold O of San Antonio.
Yes.
Kind of, yeah.
Yes. His name is Juan Herrera. We had him on the show specifically, more or less, to talk about, what he's doing to keep the spirit of not just San Antonio, but San Antonio metal, and just art and music and stunt.
Oh man, look at that guy!
The stunt
guy who pushed me into this whole thing.
Yeah,
he had some good hair back then.
Yeah, little poodle, Don the Poodle Van Stavern.
Yes, the poodle. Anyway, there's pictures in here of you, Harlan. Here they're talking about Slayer versus Slayer. There's your kick drum and the Steve Cooper right there. Oh,
right. I've seen that. So that guy took all those pictures?
No, he didn't take the photos. He compiled the book.
That's Liliana.
So, right when you asked if he's the Harold O of San Antonio, not necessarily. He's not the photographer, but he compiled the book.
Catlin and Tom.
Oh, wow.
Tom Araya and Bob Dog.
And there's the flyer for it right there. One of the flyers.
That's so cool.
So, Juan's responsible for, oh, my God, I think he did years worth of research and gathering and going through boxes and asking for permission and this and that and the other. It was definitely a labor of love, but it's really well done. It's high color, glossy, hardcover. He did a great job. And
that's
for
so
you,
cool.
A guy who is actually a part of it, you got to have it on your shelf.
I will make a call and see if we can get one out to you. But it'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. I mean, I can sit here for an hour and just go through every picture and go, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, they've all relive it. Yeah, those were great days, man. Like playing shows with you guys and just Watchtower alone was just like insane back then. It was.
Yeah. The quote on the back is by some guy. Well, it's me. It says this is on the hardcover right here. It says, "The shows we've all done together are some of the greatest moments of my life."
Yeah.
See, that does bring a tear to my eye.
Yeah, it's not wrong at all. It's like I can't.
It's true.
It's hard to not have some kind of strange feeling about how fast all of that stuff was happening.
Yeah.
And you think about from like 83 to like 86 when you moved to LA, that's a flash in time. That's like that.
Totally.
And the
So much stuff going on.
Oh my God. And the changes and the things that you did and wanted to do and were trying to do and that you've done.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. The energy back then, it's just when you're that young and you're that, you know,
Bulletproof.
and it was just cool. You know, it was just like the whole scene was brand new. So it was just like, and we were all just so determined, you know, it was like that energy and that thing and doing shows together and just doing, it was, and
at any cost, at any cost, on a mission, like it was our lifeline. Like if we didn't do it, that something was like bad was going to happen. So
Dave,
it was the best, man.
Yes, I agree.
Dave, thanks so much for spending a couple hours with us today, man. Yes. It was awesome picking your brain.
Yeah, thanks for having me, you guys. That was awesome.
Congrats on a career that's not yet over, but you've already made quite a mark, and we're happy for you and proud to call you one of our own as a Texas guy, even though you're in Wisconsin now. But
I'm still a Cowboys fan.
Yeah. Oh, well, I won't hold that against you. You may be a Cowboys fan, but you're also a great drummer, so that sort of balances it out.
Cowboys.
And, thanks for being cool to my kid when we saw you at the Sepultura show a couple weeks ago,
of course, man.
Ago, or whatever. He enjoyed meeting you, and we'll look for you the next time you're through town with Sacred Reich.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. On behalf of my co-host,
thanks, you guys.
On behalf of my co-host Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with our special guest Dave McClain from Sacred Reich, with us today on the Talk Louder podcast. Thanks, Dave.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys.